Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility. That's right, it's Wednesday, new release day here on the channel. This is for all you fusion fans, you jazz fusion fans, right? This is a kind of like a compilation mini box set of sorts of a very cool band who got their start in the 80s. One of the kind of, I think, underrated fusion bands of the 80s that doesn't get mentioned often enough. You know, we talk a lot about Chick Corea and the Electric Band, of course, you know, Spyro Gyra and Tribal Tech and the Rippingtons and the Yellow Jackets. There's all these other bands that were fairly well known throughout the 80s. But then, of course, you got Steve Smith and Vital Information, another band that came out 1983, I believe, was the first album. Of course, Steve then still a member of Journey. Steve, of course, had a long storied career in music before joining Journey. Also a member of Jean-Luc Ponty's band. But this is the Wounded Bird Collection 4-disc set, Steve Smith and Vital Information, the complete Columbia recordings. That's right, they were on Columbia Records. So here you've got from 1983, you've got the self-titled Vital Information, right? From 1984, you have Orion. From 1986, you have Global Beat. And then from 1988, you have Fiaga, or otherwise known as Celebration. So there they are right there. Complete. It's pretty cool to see this because I didn't even know that Wounded Birds was still putting out reissues and things. They're a fantastic reissue label and have been for quite some time, but I wasn't quite sure that they were still operating. Good to see that they are. So here you get, if you take a look here, you get all the information on who plays on each album. Interesting how on Orion and the Vital Information, you've got basically stable lineups, but then for Fiaga and Global Beat, you've got like basically different musicians on every track. Here you get the covers once again, pretty cool covers, I think. So let's talk about who's on what, right? So let's start off with Vital Information, the debut album. Okay, Steve Smith on drums, Mike Stern on guitar, Dean Brown on guitar, Timmy Landers on bass, and Dave Wilczewski on tenor sax. All songs written by and arranged by Steve Smith. On Orion, you've got Steve Smith on drums, a little bit of piano and percussion. You've got Dean Brown on guitars, guitar synthesizer, a little bit of piano. Tim Landers on bass. Dave Wilczewski on tenor, alto, and soprano sax. And then E.F. Albers on electric guitar on a couple tracks as well. So for those two albums, fairly consistent lineup, although you've got Stern on the first album, who was not on the second one, and E.F. Albers on the second album. So for Fiaga, you've got basically different guys on every track, but I'm going to kind of mention some of who plays on this album. And you do have some holdovers. Of course, Steve Smith is drums on all this, so I'm not going to keep mentioning him. But you got Kai Eckhart on bass, Dave Wilczewski also on sax, Torsten DeWinkel on guitars, Barry Finnerty on guitars, Frank Gambale on guitar, Tom Coster on keyboards, Jay Oliver on keyboards. Let's see who else pops up here. Corrado Rostiki on guitar, Lenny Castro percussion, Andy Norell on steel drums, Prince Joni Hostrup on vocals. There's some vocals on this album. Vladimir Johnson, some vocals. Let's see who else. Who I not mentioned here. See if anybody else pops up. I mentioned Gambale, correct. Yeah, so on this album, you've got, again, a cast of musicians, but a lot of them are playing, some are playing on some tracks, some aren't playing on the other tracks. On Global Beat, okay, you got some holdovers here. You got Dave Wilczewski also on sax, Tim Landers on bass, Dean Brown's back on guitar, Ray Gomez appears on guitar, Tom Coster's again here on keyboards, Mike Fisher on percussion. Who else? Any other names popping up here? Prince Joni Hostrup also sings on a couple tracks. Kwaku Daddy on congas. Andy Norell again on steel drums here. I think I mentioned Tom Coster, right? Barry Finnerty also appears on this album. Mike Fisher on percussion. Armando Peraza on bongos, of course, from Santana. Let's see. Anybody else? Jeff Rickman on guitar. Brad Dutz on percussion. Mike Stern's on here as well on 2 tracks. So yeah, there you have it. So a wide lineup of amazing musicians across these 4 records here, and again, these are all their Columbia albums released within 5 years of each other. So the band was fairly busy during this time. And with the exception of the handful of little vocal tracks, this is just really good melodic jazz rock fusion. Okay, very 80s sounding, right? This is not as much the daring music of the 70s, but the 80s fusion was a little bit more kind of poppy in tone, but still lots of great playing across this album. Some of the soloing is fantastic, drumming is off the charts from start to finish on all these albums. Steve Smith, to me, one of the great drummers of all time. And it's really good hearing Stern on these albums. I'm a big Mike Stern fan. I love hearing him here. You got, like I said, you got a little bit of Gambale on here, but Gambale would play a more active role in this band the albums coming after the Columbia years, when kind of like the Electric Band weren't doing as much. He was doing a bit with on his own solo stuff and with Vital Information. Dean Brown, killer guitar player. I'd love to hear Finnerty a little bit more on some of these, but and the great Tom Coster is a fantastic addition to these albums as well. So as far as favorites here, I don't know. I mean, they're all really strong. I mean, the first album is really, really good. Is really, really strong, but there are tracks on Global Beat that are just fantastic. Orion is a strong album. You really can't go wrong with this. This is a great set if you want to get all of their 80s albums on Columbia all in one shot. And I would highly recommend it. Really good band. Steve Smith and Vital Information, one of the great 80s into the 90s fusion bands that if you haven't checked them out, I would recommend you do so. So there you go. There's your review. Steve Smith and Vital Information, the complete Columbia recordings, 4 albums, all in one nice little set. Doesn't take up much room on the shelf at all, and you get 4 discs of 4 really, really, really strong albums. Thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. All together, all the damn time. Stay tuned. We got more stuff coming up for you today. Stephen Reed is here with me as well. We're going to talk about the new Gandalf's Fist album. Hopefully should have new Motorpsycho. What else we got here? Going to try and get to the new Vandenplas live as well. We've got Frank Zappa live. I don't know if all this is coming today. In Pelletieri collection. We've got new Dragonland, Iron Savior, Tedeschi Trucks Band, new Fuzzbubble, Jim Bakke. Jim Bakke's cool power pop band, Fuzzbubble. What else we got here? Oh, there's so much stuff sitting here that I'm going to be reviewing in the next couple weeks. I still have a whole stack of AFM Records power metal albums that I'm trying to get to. So, lots coming. So stay tuned for more here on the channel, here on this Wednesday. I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you real soon with more content. See you. Bye-bye.